What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Doctor of Stuff channel. I am your host, Doctor of Stuff, but you can call me Doc. Um, as always, as a disclaimer, anything that I discuss here should not be considered as financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not your financial advisor. Everything I'm just talking about is the things that I'm interested in, the things that I'm doing, my thoughts on the markets and what's happening. And I am excited to get going on here. Always a shout out to you, Bill. You are an OG. And I'm kind of excited, guys, to talk about, I'm sure, let's take a step back, right? There's some excitement, but then also some frustration and anger of things that have been happening with respect to OMI. For the crypto markets as a whole, very excited. I say with respect to OMI, with respect to Bitforex and the OMI on Bitforex, which we're going to get to today, and I'm going to give you guys some of my thoughts on that. So, what's up, Surfer Dude? How you doing? Appreciate the fam. This was kind of put together a little bit last moment. I mean, yesterday I was just like, man, I haven't been on in a while, and there's a lot to discuss, and I definitely want to get to any questions that you guys have, especially about the Bitforex thing. I feel like I definitely have a background in some of the things, or at least some insights into what could be going on, some potential things. And I know that there's been speculation, but I feel like I can add some additional context to some of the speculation there. Okay, without further ado, the first thing is what's going on with Bitcoin, right? So I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to kind of look at basically the history of Bitcoin, right? And what's going on. Let's see here. So let's share this, and let's make sure that we can see this. So, all right. So one of the things that's happened, obviously we're seeing, well, let's go first. Let's go to the 7-day, right? We've had a substantial run up in the Bitcoin price, right? From just like a week ago, it was sitting around 50,000. And let's go back a month even, right? Even to the 50,000 was a big jump and people were getting bullish. Okay, now let's go back to the 3-month, right? Because that's gonna cover kind of the announcement of the spot Bitcoin ETF. So leading up to this, let's even go back a year, because this is important to think about. It was around June, July timeframe that there was an announcement that BlackRock was entering the fray of the spot Bitcoin ETF, and I think that that's when things started to get real. Once BlackRock came in and said, hey, we're doing that, just because of the political connections that they have and everything that they own, it's pretty substantial. And so it was a big deal there, right? And then you had some SEC lawsuits that were lost. And one of the big things was in July, I believe it was July, that the judge basically told the SEC, listen, because there was already a lawsuit going on where someone had basically filed for a spot Bitcoin ETF, and the SEC had denied it, and they were suing the SEC and basically being like, you can't deny this because you've already approved a futures Bitcoin ETF, and you're saying that like there can be manipulation in the market and things, but it's the same underlying asset, so like your logic doesn't follow. If you didn't like the spot Bitcoin ETF, you shouldn't have approved the futures Bitcoin ETF. And a judge basically agreed, right? And said, hey, SEC, you have 240 days to either go back and reassess and come up with a different argument, or basically approve this thing. And so it was like I can't remember, 60 days or something that the SEC could punt this decision, right? But as that started to happen, okay, so you have this in June time frame that BlackRock announces that, right? So then we see a little pump here, and it kind of remains around that. There's some volatility here. There is a big dip, and then in July is that decision, and there's some speculation that kind of goes on, but it starts this upward trend. And then that's when more people are announcing that, hey, they're also joining the spot Bitcoin ETF. And let's see. I'll get to some of the comments here in just a second. And then it just starts climbing, right? As more and more people. So I want to point something out. People are like, oh, the bull run is just starting. I disagree. I think it's actually started back around here, around this time, because we've seen overall an upward trend in Bitcoin, and we've seen quite a few altcoins pop off during that time as well, right? A lot of gaming, a lot of AI were popping off during this time. And so then we get into January, right? And January 8th is the announcement of the spot Bitcoin ETF. And funny enough, right, people, like, there's this big dip because it was a little bit of a buy the rumor, sell the news event, but like I said before, I didn't think it would be a big sell off, and it relatively wasn't. And then we've just had this massive trajectory, just like major green candles, right? Major green candles. Very, very fascinating to go on. So that being said, why is this different? Why am I talking about this, right? Everyone can see this. It's not really news. Everyone's excited about it. They're seeing this pump. The reason I'm talking about this is because the pump like this has not happened before the Bitcoin halving. There has been a pump, but then there's also been a substantial drop right before the Bitcoin halving. That could still happen, by the way, but to get this level of pump before the Bitcoin halving, even if there is a dip, that's new. That is new. And we know that the ETF, that has to be part of it. And we are seeing, hands down, this is the most successful ETF in the history of ETFs. It has beat out gold. It has beat out everything. It's been massive, right? Like the subscriptions. And here's the crazy thing. Well, I'm going to get into that a little bit later about what's crazy. But so let's kind of look at the max again, right? So we got a Bitcoin halving. Unfortunately, CoinGecko that I'm using, they don't have the history in 2012. So if we go here, and I don't have the trading view. Well, we can go. Let's try to do the trading view. Didn't have it pulled up. Let's see if this is going to work. No, like this isn't gonna look. Let's just go back to price for now. I didn't have that all structured. So back in let's see, July 9th, 2016, right? We'll kind of trace this a little bit, but Bitcoin's at 400, 500, right? So right before there, it's doing pretty good. Up to 700 June, it pumps, and then there's this dip, right, from 756 around that time. That's around that high for that point. And then from 756, it dips down to before the halving, July 9th, right? There's a big dip. Let's see, right? July 8th, 653, 646. But it's about like a 25% drop there. Then we're going to go to May 11th, which we're going to get a little bit more detail here. This is going to be helpful, but May 11th of 2020, right? So we kind of see this here building up January, February, March, February, and then bam, this big dip in March, right? That hits. Now it doesn't happen until May. So this is about 60 days before the Bitcoin halving happens. That's a substantial dip, right? From around 9,600, 10,000, all the way down to 5,000, almost a 50% decrease, right? The scaling. Look, yeah, I'm sorry. Slaps, thank you. He's telling me what to do, and I could do that. I've got a lot on my mind. Sorry. So we're already here. May 11th, 2020. I showed you that dip, a 50% decrease, right? So there was dips in each of these right before the Bitcoin halvings, and like not only are we not really seeing that, but like this is a massive spike. And remember that last one I was saying was about 60 days beforehand. Well, we're past the 60-day mark, right? Like I think it's going to be like April. Does anyone know off the top of their heads? April 14th, something like that. But we're past that, so we could still see a big a big drop. And I know that there's actually some traders that are talking about that. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to see a big retracement here. We'll see if it happens, because again, this time what's different, and we're in uncharted territory with how high this is crossed. It's never pumped and crossed some of these lines before in any of the other right before the halvings. We're in uncharted territory, and so it's like your guess is as good as mine. People can sit there and say, hey, in the past that's happened, but in the past this hasn't happened. So there's a chance now that what's happened in the past isn't going to happen again. We might not get a dip, or if we get a dip, is it going to be near as big? I don't think so. I think if there is a dip, which is possible, I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as big of a dip as before. And I want to get into really why. And I think that this is so important for me in how I'm thinking of what's going to be happening longer term with Bitcoin. If you take a long historical look at the U.S. stock market, overall, it has been up only. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. It's been up only. Yes, there's been some dips. The Great Recession, the Great Depression, the recession that hit in 2008. Like, there's been dips along the way. In the 80s, like stagflation. There's definitely been some massive hits to the economy, but over time, right, it's been up, just a constant trajectory up. Why? Why is that? There's a couple reasons. Number one, the population in the United States has just it's grown every year, right? Like, there's just more and more. So there's that growth there, and then with 401ks and these saving plans, right, and pensions, there's more and more people that start putting into those. And what's happening is their money, right, are being allocated amongst the stock market. On top of that, the U.S. stock market, with the strength of the U.S. dollar, has also caused a lot of other countries to want to invest in the U.S. stock market. Now, there are mutual funds and things that can invest in foreign firms and assets and things, but for the most part, most of our money goes into U.S. stocks, and there's a lot of the rest of the world also invests in U.S. stocks. So again, kind of up only. Now let's go to Bitcoin. Yes, Bitcoin has been up only, right, over time. Like, if you look at kind of that same, but there has been so much volatility, and one of the reasons for that is because, like crypto degens, we're investing and we're hoping that money go up or the Bitcoin go up so that we can sell and offload our bags onto someone else at highs, and then we exchange it into fiat and we use that. Now some people are they'll exchange some of that and they keep some of the money in, but a lot of money gets taken out of the ecosystem of crypto. Okay, and with a spot Bitcoin ETF, this changes everything, because now there's going to be people who just want to allocate a percentage of their 401k to Bitcoin. And there's going to be funds that allocate a specific percentage of that fund to Bitcoin. And so those people aren't going to be taking their money out until they retire, right? And so it's now entered into this system. And now, because, look, there's been a spot Bitcoin ETF in Europe for a while now. And it's been traded. So why is it such a big deal that now that the U.S. has it? It's because the rest of the world kind of views the U.S. stock market as kind of like the more strict and stringent regulatory body that to regulate that. And because of the strength of the dollar, like it has a worldwide impact. And we're seeing that in these price surges. We didn't really see that with the spot Bitcoin ETF in Europe. In fact, I've talked to a lot of people who were like, I didn't even know we had spot Bitcoin ETF. In Europe. I thought this was the first one. It is not the first one. So let's see here. Let's go to some of the comments real quick before I get in more to this. Love your perspective on Bitcoin ETFs having no self-custody, and neither do banks, and the effect that this might have on the altcoin markets. Will we see Bitcoin profits shift back into alts? That's a great question. There is a lot of money, like I just said, right, that is going into these spot Bitcoin into the ETF. And so are they then going to roll those profits into altcoins? I would say no. Now, here's something that is very important with these ETFs, right? A lot of times when people go into ETFs, your shares in that ETF give you voting rights. But most of the time in these ETFs, people don't pay attention and they don't actually end up voting. And so whoever's managing the fund kind of gets to actually control what's happening. And that can have a substantial impact. So the people who are managing this, right, they want good margins. So they can sell in and out and they can do things. And because no one's really voting on that, there's a lot that can happen there. But if they do sell at different points in time, they're not rolling that into altcoins. But there's still a substantial amount of the market that previous to the Bitcoin ETF that are definitely going to be rolling in there. So that is a great question, Surfer Dude, as to how we see alts play out this time. Are they going to pump as much if people aren't selling the Bitcoin and rolling in? I do believe that there will be a decent percentage, but will it be that big? Let's see. Why does Gensler have such a vested interest in discrediting crypto? To be honest, and I don't like to get necessarily into politics in general in this, but I think it does have to do with politics. I think that he and Elizabeth Warren are in cahoots. Elizabeth Warren is tied to a lot of the large banks, and the large banks don't like this because it's money flowing out from their institutions. Now there's some like BlackRock and Fidelity, right? Like some of these larger firms like that are also in the banking world or have subsidiaries or whatever that's part of that. They are entering this, but for the most part, right, like a lot of these banks aren't. And so Elizabeth Warren is going to fight that because it impacts the banks and she doesn't want that. And I think that her and Gary are in that. And because you can see before Gary took this position, I mean, he argued that Ethereum wasn't a security. And I think he argued that Algorand wasn't a security, right? He was out there talking about these things. And then voila, he gets this political position and then everything changes. And I mean, he looks really silly. I mean, can everyone just agree with that? How many cases has the SEC lost already, these lawsuits? It's just like loss after loss after loss, right? Because he's not arguing based on sound logic. It's based on like they're trying to slow this down or to stop it if possible, because it impacts the banks. I mean, that's my thought on it. Like that's his whole thing. Because again, right before he took this position, he was very much pro crypto. So and he just, I mean, there's all the memes. You can look at all the memes with Gary Gensler. It's ridiculous, It is obnoxious. It's obnoxious. But what it's allowed us to do, Dan, is it's allowed us to pack our bags at lower prices that whole time. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yep, Surfer Dude kind of asked it more tier one exchanges in U.S. lawsuits. There's also one. I mean, talk about politics right now. I mean, I know that Circle presented in front of like the U.S. Financial Committee, basically saying, "Hey, there's this firm tied to Tether, and through that firm, you should be able to regulate Tether and stop that because they're allowing all of this." Money laundering and finance of terrorism and things. And ironically, like Tether, they react so much faster and they blacklist. Look, for the crypto degens, the decentralized things, like they don't like to hear this. But like Tether really does blacklist a lot of wallets and things way faster than Circle does. But yet Circle is trying to play the politics, right? And trying to get this regulatory capture and target their political opponents, which are their opponents in the space with Tether. And that's what banks are doing to crypto, basically. Thanks, Slavs. Sorry. We've only been getting these 20 dips so far, consistent with the past. I mean, I just showed you that one in 2016. It was a 50% dip. That's significant. And that's what I think that people along the lines were. I've seen a lot of traders that are still expecting a potential 50% dip from here. And I don't see us dropping all the way back down to 30,000 now. There's still a lot of inflows. And that is before we still haven't seen a lot of marketing, guys, on these Bitcoin ETFs. Like there's some, and we saw some leading up to the potential announcement, right? Like I saw that some in December and early January before the SEC just came out and said like these are approved, but we have not seen the marketing that is going to happen with these ETFs, and I suspect that marketing is going to start to happen in after the halving in April. Like I think it's going to ramp up then, because that's another selling point that they're going to be bringing on. So as Bitcoin is going up, right, they're going to be going and being like, look at Bitcoin. They've got all these talking points that they're going to be hitting on why. And now that it's been approved as a security, there's more regulation around it. There's less volatility. There's going to be all these talking points. There's going to be a lot more commercials, and there's going to be a lot more funds that are allocating a percentage of that of the spot Bitcoin ETF in their portfolios. And so, man, it is going to go up. So, Mo, I'd like to hear, you're saying that there's a roundtable going on. Maybe that's why we're just seeing some people trickle in here. What up, Scott? Good to see you. $208 in gas fees to buy $1,200 worth of ETH. Choppa, I hate during the bull run ETH prices and gas fees. It makes me so angry. And what's going to happen sometimes, as I experienced last bull run, is transactions will fail and you'll have to still pay that gas fee. And it's insane. I'm actually going to talk about that a little bit in this example when we get to Bitforex, right? There will be Bitcoin sellers that make the gains and buy alts, like Slav said, and like I was saying before. But these institutions, right, they are not authorized to go buy altcoins. So like it's trapped there, like in the Bitcoin. If they're selling, right, they're waiting for a little bit, and then but they always have to, with these ETFs, right? Like they are supposed to, right? Let's put it that way. They are supposed to be backed 1-to-1 with this, right? So if someone has bought this Bitcoin ETF, they put $100 towards that Bitcoin ETF, that entity is supposed to have $100 worth of Bitcoin backing that at all times. Does that happen? I don't think so. I don't think that always happens. I really don't. And so that would be interesting to see. However, you do have a structure where Coinbase, for the majority of these firms who are doing the spot Bitcoin ETF, Coinbase is the custodian of that. So Coinbase is supposed to have all of those funds. But it's interesting. There's a lot of funny things that they can find around. I feel like Wall Street has always been able to perform some monkey business with things. So we'll see how that impacts. We saw that with GameStop and naked shorts. Like one of the reasons that GameStop went up so high, because firms, it's illegal. You're not supposed to be able to do a naked short, but there were definitely firms that were doing naked shorts. And because of that, they had to buy back those securities, right, to fulfill that transaction. And it just got crazy. So again, Wall Street can do some funny things, and I'm not putting it past BlackRock or some of these firms to do some monkey business here. So are mining stocks interesting? I have never gotten anything with mining stocks. Any thoughts on the impact of the halving on miners? Typically, they will run at a decent multiple of Bitcoin. It becomes, with the halving, it does become less profitable for miners because they're constantly using energy. And honestly, that proof of work is pretty extensive, right? Now, I know that the Bitcoin community, there's a lot that they are working on to try to bring those costs down. And there was this great podcast on Bankless podcast. I love that podcast. And I'm trying to remember, Bitcoin Dan is the name that they gave this guy, but he was talking about this potential use case, and he's pretty sure it's going to work, where basically they will be able to create kind of like this layer 2 and like, I believe, smart contracts on Bitcoin. And with that layer 2, like a lot of things, there's a lot more utility and use case for that could bring more activity there. And if there's more activity, then the price goes up. So even though there's a halving, if the price of the Bitcoin stays up, they're still going to be okay there. So Scott, I'd love to hear actually in the chat how those have been performing. If you're saying crypto related investments, mining stocks, how those stocks been doing. And then Slavs, yes, I agree. And this is something that people really haven't been talking about. We're starting to see it. But I was saying like a month ago that basically there's a difference with the ETH ETF that people aren't really recognizing, and that it's this. With DeFi and everything that's being built on Ethereum and the tokenomics of Ethereum, they can do cash flow projections on ETH. So I actually think that there's a lot of institutions who are going to be very bullish on a spot ETH ETF, and I do believe that that's going to get that ETH is going to do a run up because it was pretty delayed. I was kind of expecting, just in general, like a lot of the market moved as Bitcoin has moved up, but like not ETH. And then recently in the last couple of weeks, we've seen ETH do that. And I think that we're also going to see that even more leading up to what I believe, because basically they're going to be very, very hard pressed. There's already an ETH futures ETF too. Like it's the same argument. The SEC is not going to win this. So it doesn't make sense that they're going to push it down the road. But yeah, I can't remember when it is, Slavs. Maybe you can tell me. I think it's May is the next decision that the SEC has, right, to approve the spot ETH ETF. But I do believe that institutions are also going to gravitate towards that because there's a lot more financial analytics that they can do with ETH than they can with Bitcoin. You can't stake ETH in Switzerland because the nature of ETH staking requires a custodian that has to be licensed. Interesting. When I stake in Cardano, my ADA stays in my wallet. In ETH, you have to give it to Lido, and that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how different countries apply these staking mechanisms. I don't know if you guys heard, but crypto's gone on the offensive, and there is this exchange that has sued the SEC. They've filed a lawsuit basically trying to force the SEC to acknowledge that the tokens that they list on their exchange will not be considered securities. And so let's do a little bit of a backstep here. There was an argument with Ripple, right? And the judge, the way that she worded her argument, and she had to do it this way because the argument wasn't about like secondary market activity, like you and me, specifically, once we buy that, is that part of the actual contract, the investment contract? And I can't remember, you got to brush up on that, but she used a different term. But honestly, she compared whatever term she used, she compared them to secondary market purchasers in saying that, like, look, there is no investment contract there. And so this lawsuit actually should bring to the judge and basically say any secondary market transaction on any token is not considered a security. And if that happens, wow, that is massive. Now, the staking is another thing. And we know that Coinbase is in a fight right now with the SEC about that. And we'll see. They made their arguments, and the judge, this happened in January, the judge, just from her responses, really was siding way more with Coinbase, but she hasn't made her determination. She's like, she's going to sit back and look at it. But my guess is that she comes back and basically says, I'm sorry, SEC, but you're wrong again. And so it'll be interesting, Tommy, if the US says, hey, we don't believe that this staking mechanism requires this is a security. I wonder if then regulations in other countries loosen. But that is something awesome about, I love with Cardano, the Cardano staking. When I first did that, I was like, wait, what? It's still here and I still get the benefits? I was like, wait, what? It's awesome. And I know a lot of people make fun of Cardano, but like I've loved my experience on Cardano, and the projects that I'm in Cardano, I've enjoyed. So there's that. All right. Did Omi make a mistake moving to Immutable X? They didn't seem to be supportive. That's a great question, Pink Panther. And again, shout out to all my Omi homies and VeVe fam. Thank you for the support and for watching that. You know what? Real quick, I always do this right. You got to smash, push, crush. Hey, you can gently caress, but however you do it, I would love it if you could like and subscribe to the channel and push that all notifications buttons, so that it helps me grow my channel. It helps get like my actual videos out to a broader audience. I still think that there's a lot of VeVe fam who I believe could benefit from my background and perspective. I feel like it's quite different than any of the other VeVe people out there, to be honest. So yeah, I would love it if you could do that. But again, shout out to the people who are here. Really appreciate you. Hindsight is always 2020. I think that at the time it made a lot of sense to migrate to Immutable X. I would not be surprised if in the future they don't actually migrate the token again. And there's a lot of reasons why that could happen. To something like base, to what was another one that I was just thinking of? There's another. It'll come to me, but yeah, like we'll see. But I agree with you. I mean, Immutable X, it hasn't been super special, but the transactions have been cheap, and that was one of the big things. That's why they went to Go Chain initially, is because the transactions, minting all these things, were going to be so cheap. So it made a lot of sense at the time. But I do think that there's a lot more. The technology is advanced, and there's a lot more options now. And we'll see. We'll see if that happens. There's a lot, right? Because then they've got to remint everything on this new blockchain. I don't know, but I could see that happening in the future there. So 75% on your, this is on your crypto mining stocks then, right? But it has a decent pullback the last 2 days, which is odd with a Bitcoin price movement. Yeah, look, that is interesting to see if it's tied. And I've just never followed crypto mining stocks at all. But I know that I had a buddy of mine who couldn't, because of his position and things, couldn't own crypto, but he did it a different way where he just bought in MicroStrategies, and MicroStrategies stock has gone crazy, right? It's just like backdoor into like crypto exposure, specifically Bitcoin, and that has performed incredibly well for the stock market, like phenomenally well. Okay, so that's when the spot ETH ETF is 75% around there plus in the last 30 days. This is when things get exciting. This is when things get exciting. But there's also, this is when a lot of scams and a lot of hackers and things really start to re-enter the space, because as the value goes up, there's a lot of people who bought low that are unsophisticated, and they don't know a lot of the things that can happen, and they exploit those people, and because the gains are so much bigger, the money's out there. So you're going to have to start to be very, very careful. Your crypto hygiene has to be top notch, and we're going to talk a little bit about that because it is very important. Yep. So you've got the proto-dank sharding, right? I think that's what you're talking about with the gas problem. That's going to help on layer 2s even more, but like I don't know how much it's going to help on layer 1 still, Sloth, if that's what you're talking about. It'll be interesting. All I know is like I am so sick of transacting on ETH, and I'd love to see like projects now that are on multiple chains where I can buy their token on multiple chains, because every time I'm freaking going outside of ETH or to the layer 2 to purchase these tokens, because it just makes me so angry to pay those fees. So angry. And what's up, Doc? I love that. And actually, like, people say it all the time, and to me, it never gets old. I freaking love Bugs Bunny. I love it. Shout out to you, Walrus King. Is OMI the most beat down coin that isn't dead of the past 3 years? I don't believe so. Hold on. Let's check something here. Wanna share something. One of these tokens. And this is something that I think that people, just to put in perspective, right? Let's just do this, guys. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. ApeCoin. All right, guys. This is the last year of ApeCoin. Okay. There has been an increase. Let's see if we look back 3 months, right? Okay, it's a little green. Let's look at that. It's okay, right? I mean, there's been some gains there in the last 30 days, but man, overall, like if you look at this chart, like it's at freaking $23 at the top, right? Like, I mean, this is massive, and now it's getting to about $2. That's still like 90 something percent down from its all-time high. Now, there's an argument to be made that like all of the tokens weren't there, you know, and so really you're not getting price discovery until around this time. But all I'm saying is anyone who bought ApeCoin along this line got wrecked too, you know. So now, I feel for you. Look, I've been in OMI since 2021. My first purchase was 008. Man, this community has been through a ton. I'll tell you what. So anyone who is still here, I just want to give you a hug because we've been through a ton and it sucks. It freaking sucks. And so let's get into the Bitforex thing. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about that. For those, I'm sure everyone knows, right? But like around a week ago, it seems, people tried to access Bitforex and they couldn't. Then the mods in the Discord of Bitforex, you know, were like, you know, we don't know what's going on. I mean, it got crazy. And long story short, right? You have, and let me pull this up, but you had some people. You had Zach XBT that was talking. He did a kind of analysis on Bitforex and some outflows. And let's just say this: before the shutdown, like there's a few things. The CEO that had been the CEO of Bitforex for a while stepped down about 3 months ago. Okay, that's in the context of what's happened. That's weird, right? Why did he step down? He could have seen that some shady things were going on, and he's just like, you know what? I don't want to be a part of it. Like, I know things are going to be going down, and like I'm out before that. I don't want to get the heat for it. He could have been forced out because maybe some of the things that he did, right, caused some of this. We don't know, but what we know is, let's see if I can pull up Zach here. He gave a pretty good analysis. Let's pull him up with a Bitforex. Man, this guy covers so many different scams. All right, let's see. I'm going to share my screen here again. Let's do that. All right, so you got, he says on February 23rd, their hot wallet, so about a week, 6 days ago, their hot wallets saw outflows of 56.5 million. Shortly after this time, withdrawals stopped processing, so people couldn't pull their funds off, with no official announcements having been made since, right? So he tweets this out. When does he tweet this out? On February 26th. So as of 3 days ago, no outflows. So he was talking about this. Now, it was interesting because Dr. Profit actually talked about this, and he believes that, so on Arkham Asylum, which is a popular platform to kind of do some crypto tracing, wallet tracing and things, Dr. Profit argues that one of the wallets that they marked that had like TRX, let's see if I can pull him up. Profit. Okay. All right. So he talks about, so he argues that Zach XBT's assessment is a little bit off, that there's one wallet that does not appear to be a Bitforex hot wallet. And he talks about that. And so it's not 56.5 million that were moved, just 3.5. That's a big difference, a significant difference there. But in the end, right, what's happened is that this is frozen, and there's been a lot of theories. And one of the theories that's kind of happened is Singapore has come out and basically said, hey, you know, there's this compliance, and all of the exchanges have 9 months to comply. And if you don't, right, like you're out. And so some people were like, hey, maybe the regulators came in and they hadn't been compliant, and during like a spot check, even before like the deadline. And so maybe this is why. And I'm going to tell you, look, in the US, and this happened to me with Gate.io. So at some point, Gate.io, they felt some regulatory pressure. And so they're like, we're not going to serve US customers anymore. Right. And so they notified us. And this is what's going to happen. Guys, regulators, when they come in, now I don't know Singapore, but in the US, what happens is this happens a lot where in the financial markets, right? Like, or industry where, regulators will come out and they'll say, hey, we're implementing this new regulation, and it's that, it's going to happen. We're going to give you 9 months, right, to kind of come into compliance with this. I'll give you a perfect example. There's a thing in banking called CECL, or current expected credit losses. And it's for institutions where if they have assets on their books and there's potential losses, typically in loans or securities, right, they have to provision for potential losses. And there was one way they did it in accounting beforehand. And then FASB, the Financial Accounting Standards Board, made this accounting pronouncement with CECL and changed everything. They gave them 3 years, basically, for most institutions to be compliant. Now institutions could early adopt it, right? But when regulators were going in, like, they would just spot check and they'd be like, hey, how are things progressing? Because the deadline isn't until then. No regulator comes in and says, here's the deadline, and then comes in before the deadline and enforces it and says, you're not in compliance with this. And they're like, well, I don't have to be until this date. So for me, that explanation is completely out, which leaves a few different ones, right? Either there's a hacker, not good outcome. However, if it was a hacker, I truly believe that a lot more things would have gone out by now. Even the OMI tokens, right? Because they're going to steal whatever they can and they're just going to dump it. And even if it's pennies on the dollars, who cares? They're making some money, right? So the longer this goes on, the longer I think that could have been a hacker, and they could have stopped the hacker, right? They could have somehow been able to stop him before they were able to get more out. That's a possible scenario. And for the OMI homies, that's a good scenario to an extent, because if a lot of these other funds, the hackers stole those, there's probably going to be a bankruptcy. They're probably going to be insolvent because they can't meet all of the creditors that they owe these deposits to, right? And so there's going to be a bankruptcy, and it might be years before these tokens unlock. And if history has anything to say, what we've seen is if they do get recoveries, they're paying people out at the price of the token when it was locked. So if OMI does go up, they're not going to be able to experience any of that growth. That's what we've seen there. I have a buddy who he had about 4.5 Bitcoin, and this was like 7 or 8 years ago, and it's still, like, with the SEC, it's still in this lawsuit, and he doesn't know, but his expectation is, like, if I get paid out or if there's anything, it's going to be at the price of Bitcoin back 8 years ago, and he's not going to get any of that upward swing. So that's a tough pill to swallow. There could also be ransomware. It doesn't necessarily explain the outflows of those funds, or why the CEO left 3 months ago. So anyways, those are some of the scenarios. If people have other scenarios, I can kind of touch on what we think it is. But for right now, I think that the most likely scenario is most likely, not necessarily what's going to happen, but more than likely, it's looking more like some sort of insolvency, because these funds still haven't moved. And so if that's the case, I'm hoping that the OMI homies can still get some of their funds back, but it's probably going to be a long time. So again, is it the most beat down? It's definitely one of them. Like, it's been hurt, but I'm going to give you some hope, Dan. Honestly, I'll go into this, but, like, for me personally, and I kind of alluded to this in what I was going to talk about here, is I think that there's some significant things coming for OMI. I did the wallet trace, right? Like, shout out to Crypto Bro. He had showed, he tracks the wallets, the VeVe wallets, and there was like $18 million, or sorry, $80,000. It was like 17 million OMI, something like that moved to an exchange, BitGet. And that's around the price of what it would be if they were considered, if OMI was considered a tier 2 token, to be listed on their exchange, right? I do believe here in the next, by at least the end of April, my projection, if not sooner, that OMI is going to get listed on BitGet. That does not help the people in the US get access to that, right? We have to use, Uniswap or MetaMask, which uses Uniswap, right? That's how I've been buying it for a while. I mean, I stopped buying on Bitforex a while ago just because, yes, I did pay a little bit more in gas, but it was just so much more convenient to just send ETH to my MetaMask and then just swap it for OMI. We've seen some interesting things about OMI though because of that, right? But long term, I think that there's more utility coming for the token, which that in and of itself is bullish in that people won't care what the price is. If it's tied to like, I just need $1 worth of OMI to get a bronze ticket, I don't care what the price is. I want more entries for whatever drop is happening. So that type of utility is going to be great. I also believe that we're going to get OMI to NFT here probably by end of second quarter or sooner, maybe third quarter, right? But sometime this year, still during what I perceive to be the bull run. On top of all of that, what I've learned, and I've only been in crypto for about 4 years, so like I don't have the experience that some other people do. But from what I've seen in all of my analysis, you just have to hit a narrative. The perfect example is my animal concerts, massive win for me, right? Like I've been buying animal concerts for 2.5 years, maybe 2.5 years. And I bought a lot during the summer when it was like at 000 or 0015 around, like I can't remember if 000 or 0015 around there at its lows. And I stocked up quite a bit there because I believed, I'm like, I know the Apple Vision Pro is coming out at some point, and I know that there's going to be concerts in the metaverse. And I know that like, if they really have the connection to all of these artists, which I believe they do, this could be big and it's going to hit a narrative at some point, right? And then in December, because I was like, okay, the Apple Vision Pro is going to be announced sometime. They're going to make an announcement of when it's going to be released. That didn't happen until January, but like mid-December, the token went crazy. And I was like, whoa, did they tweet something? Have they made an announcement? No announcement. I have no idea where that came from or anything like that. It was a 12x pump for me. Like it was amazing. And you can see it on my Twitter. I was like, look, I'm selling half of my gains here, right? I'm gonna lock that in. And now it's back down to like 0003 or 000 or 003, whatever that is. But things can pump for no reason, and that's not even the narrative. But like AI is in the narrative, and you see all of these AI coins, whether they built something or not, right? Just the speculation on it, people go crazy. So I think that OMI has a real chance to still hit a significant crypto narrative, whether it's AR, VR stuff, whether it's metaverse or gaming. I think that there's a lot of different things that can happen. So it is the most bit down, but I think that it's going to make a comeback, man. And we're seeing somewhat of a comeback here right now, even with all of those tokens locked up. And I'll say this, I want to be very sensitive to the people who have tokens locked up on Bitforex, because that sucks. My heart goes out to you. That just sucks. Crypto sucks sometimes. But if it is an insolvency, that's 8% of the supply that's locked up for years that can't be sold. Basically, during this bull run, it's like a burn. So like I've bought more OMI just because of that, because I'm like, my expectation is that it's some sort of insolvency. Now I could get wrecked if it is a hacker and they go and they dump all of those tokens on the market. Could get wrecked, and I still believe in OMI, and I'll probably buy at whatever prices that got down to. But so I did not lose any tokens on Bitforex. However, I have some like Crypto Rain. I think he had like 30 million OMI tokens on Bitforex. I mean, he still had a lot more outside of that, but sometimes it's useful to just keep it on there and set price like targets, right? Like, hey, if it hits this price, I'm going to sell it, and just kind of set it and forget it. But there's that risk there. So I hear a lot of people, and it's true, like not your keys, not your crypto, right? If it's on that exchange, like it's no longer in your self-custody wallet, and there's things like this that can happen. But to completely blame them, I want people to take ownership of it more than anything. Comey has come out multiple times and said, hey, it's not good. It's not good to hold your tokens on exchange for things like this. And people are like, well, if you had been on more exchanges, I want to address this real quick. Sorry. Like they said, hey, if Omi had been on more exchanges, this wouldn't have happened. And I'm like, we don't know that. Honestly, like, okay, what if Omi had been on FTX a year ago, right? I guarantee you the majority of Omi tokens would have been on FTX. That's the second largest exchange in the entire world at the time, crypto exchange in the world. Like getting on another exchange doesn't necessarily protect you. So to sit there and say this is Omi's fault that they weren't on more exchanges, like could it have diversified? Like if there's more exchanges, the token could be spread out more, so there would have been less of a potential loss. But at the end of the day, we got to take ownership of our actions, right? And I'm going to share a story with you about that, taking ownership. I learned this. I call it my crypto tuition early on. Early on in the space, I was in a Crypto Rain was gracious enough. He got me into like a pre-seed, venture capital fund. There was a lot of different people in this VC, and one of them was a pretty significant crypto influencer. And the person came in and they were shilling the crap out of this new NFT project. This is when NFTs were hot, right? Like summer of 2021. Bored Apes were starting to just pump and things. And it might even been the fall. I think it was the fall of 2021 when I think Visa had bought a CryptoPunk or something. I mean, right? Like NFTs were in the narrative. And he came in and he had a massive following and he just talked up this thing like crazy. And I was like, I'm new. And I'm like, hey, look. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's been successful in crypto. I'm in. And I aped in, right? At the time, I say I aped in with the funds that I was willing to spend on crypto. I aped in a lot of my crypto funds. And speaking of high gas fees, right? Like I was trying to mint these and you're minting against other people. And I had multiple failed transactions. Okay. I tried to mint. It didn't work. And the gas fee alone, it was in the thousands on gas fees that I lost and spent to freaking mint these things. And within 2 months, they were worth zero. And I was so bitter. I was so mad. I was like, this crypto influencer, he comes in, he was talking about all this stuff like he knows what he's talking about. I was like, screw him. Like, right, I was putting all the blame on him. And in this chat, like I would make snarky comments about and not just me, there's some other people who are doing it too. And this guy came back and was like, screw you guys. Basically, he's like, I talked about a project that I was bullish on. It didn't pan out. I didn't make you invest. I didn't do any of these things. And he's like, so freaking own it or get out of here. This crypto space isn't for you. Right. And I was just like, read that, was so pissed. But then I took a step back and I was like, you know what? That is so true. I didn't do my due diligence. I put all my faith in this one guy, right? And I was like, he must know what he's talking about. And I got wrecked because of that, right? Now, who's to say? I could have done due diligence. And I could have still felt bullish about the project. Then I would have owned it even more. But like, honestly, I can just say the sooner that people just take ownership of this, maybe Comey could hold some percentage of the blame if you want. I don't agree with that. But if people want to do that, I'm like, fine. But the large majority of the blame, you have to take on yourself because you had that opportunity to take it off and you didn't. Now, there might be some people who couldn't, or like there's different scenarios. I'm not talking to outliers on that. This sucks. And I'm sure that people are going to be pissed that they're listening to this, but I just hope that you learn from this. And I hope that you don't get bitter and that you don't quit. Because we still got, in my opinion, an awesome road ahead of us. So please don't quit. But that's my take on that. Euphoria is not too far away. Started seeing big non-crypto accounts post, right? People are talking about Bitcoin more as it's approaching its new all-time high. And you just wait. Once it passes its all-time high, the mainstream media is going to be about it. Then on top of the that I'm talking about this. So something to think about there. Shout out to you, Omicron. I appreciate you, fam. You've been such an awesome supporter of me and the channel for a long time. Thank you very much. VeVe market seems dead since March 2021, and I will be till the end. But when you see all markets up and VeVe so down, disappointment is real. Now, there's a difference between VeVe and OMI, and OMI is down. OMI's done okay since the Bitcoin spot ETF, right? Like it's nothing crazy. I mean, we've seen some projects with much smaller market caps. That's a caveat there that have done multiples and things. But VeVe, like it's all NFT markets are like down significantly right now. You've seen some pumps like Pudgy Penguins. They're up significantly. They're up because of what Luca Netz is doing with Pudgy Penguins and getting like these plush toys into Walmart. Walmart's just ordered another second massive batch, right? And then you have like the OGs of apes and CryptoPunks. Like those are staples, but everything else, like the market's down. But I believe that the NFT narrative will come back again. And I think that there's some things with VeVe. I'm personally not counting VeVe out by any means. And I'm with you, even if so, like I'm here till the end because I'm here with the community. And I've just enjoyed my ride. And man, the relationships that I've made through this, like I will never count it as a loss. Honestly, Danny DeBoll said that one time. I was like, dude, I echo that so strongly. I am completely up on anything I put into VeVe because of the relationships and the community, the friendships I've made there. Yeah, this is what Civ, honestly, and hopefully I'm saying that right, but like extremely, there's something suspicious. That's where I don't think it's regulatorily related because the regulators would put out something. There would be some sort of communication. The fact that there's like none, whack. Abe, what up? The Bump interview with Jay, like Bump, if the use case really happens, I think that could be substantial. I know that Crypto Rain has had bumper seat Jonathan DeCarteret on, it's phenomenal, and Jordan Riz and Randy Chavez also had him on, great interviews there. So I have been buying more Bump during this time as well. First world problems, true, that's true. But Abe, I appreciate that you even joined in even for a second. Yeah, I can't argue if people are listening to Rain. He's got some awesome alpha. I love his interviews. I think that's happening, Dan. I believe that owning the NFT and these bronze tickets and things, OMI's going to be deflationary. It's happening. And if it's down at these prices, right, there's going to be some decent burns. I think psychologically that will be a massive boost, right? Like you just said, it's going to make you so much more bullish. I don't think that the burns are going to really have a significant impact on the overall supply, but I think psychologically that is going to turn people around and start noticing the token. Because a deflationary token, that is a narrative, and people bite on that for sure. Mo Collections, appreciate you. Ascendex. Okay, Ascendex, but again, you can buy, but remember, please learn to self-custody your assets. If you have questions, hit me up. I'll kind of walk you through the process, right? There's a lot of videos on YouTube too that walk you through just setting up a MetaMask or a Trust wallet or some sort of non-custodial wallet. Please do that. I do use exchanges, but it's typically I go there, I do my business, I get out, just like the bathroom, right? So it could be in Hong Kong, right? But I believe that China's had some regulatory things too, but I don't know. But for me, like I think the point is moot whether they're in Singapore or Hong Kong, regarding that it's the regulators that have forced this or caused this issue with Bitforex. I don't believe. What's up, NFT Hero? I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. I honestly bought more OMI. I was excited. I bought some down when it dipped down into like the 0007s again, just because I'm again overall bullish on the token. And if those tokens really are locked up for a couple of years because of insolvency, they won't be there for people to sell. And that I don't want that to be insensitive for the people who have that locked up, because I do have several friends who have a significant amount of OMI locked up in there, and that sucks. I agree with you, James, right? We started to turn a corner, like VeVe and OMI, like we were getting bullish, things were happening, especially on the OMI side of things. And then this hits and it's like that's where it's just like, can't we just catch a break? Can't we just catch a break? It'll be 0014. I thought the mark was 0012 was kind of that next threshold that we had to break through. But that would be exciting. Philip, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. That I'm sorry. Like there's no way around it. As much as I say like it's a tough learning experience, like I still feel for you guys because I've been there and I just think back to that when I just got wrecked on something and I had to learn that lesson. And it wasn't that lesson, it was a different lesson. People are gonna learn, people are gonna pay a crypto tuition one way or another. And it sucks. So I'm sorry, man. Sorry for all the fam that lost that. I'm sorry. I'm glad that you have some on the ledger. I heard that too. Someone was telling me that like they just purchased tens of thousands of dollars worth of OMI like the day before the exchange went down. I don't know if that was you, but man, I'm sorry. See, and look, a lot of the fam here, we're here for you. Look, if people want to freaking vent, I'm there for you. I'm there for you. But I promise you, the sooner that you can realize and be like, this sucks, there's nothing I can do about it. What can I do going forward? And how can I still win? Those are the people who are going to make it. Like, ultimately, I look at like, look, my portfolio right now is doing awesome. And this is pre-bull run, and I'm so excited. And if I would have quit after that, if I would have been like, screw crypto, I would have missed out on all of this. There's so much that I would have missed out on. Guys, there's so much left. So don't give up. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, I'm with you. It is a big mental hit. But hey, I'm here, man. And if you ever want to hit me up in the DMs and just vent, I'm here to listen, right? And if you need any walkthrough on anything to kind of help with the self-custody, I got you. So again, I'm so sorry to hear that, man. I'm stoked to hear that. I do believe that OMI is going to do well, and the rest of the bag will experience some gains. That's how I'm playing it. Like I said, I've been buying more OMI. Philip, and that's fine, regardless of the exchanges. If you want to do it on the exchange, get that off the exchange as soon as you're done. Appreciate you, Pixel Trader. Good to see you. I agree. Look, I'm excited. There's some things that I want to buy with OMI that I don't want to like cash out of crypto gains and then go all the way through that, right? To then put that on the VeVe app and then buy my NFTs, right? But if I do have that OMI to NFT, I will be using some of my OMI to purchase some of the NFTs. And also I do want to sell some of my NFTs for OMI, right? To keep that. So I agree with you. It's this mutual connection that we've been waiting for a long time. Okay, so here's a warning on Sendex, not easy to deal with customer service. Look, I would say in general, customer service at any exchange, pretty terrible. Coinbase in the US is okay, but it's because they're US based and there's some like regulatory expectations on customer service. But for the most part, customer service that I've dealt with in other exchanges, takes days to get anything, if I get anything. It does have a way of humbling us. This is so Seasick Viking. Welcome, man. I haven't seen you before. I haven't seen you comment before. But glad you're here. Crypto has a way of humbling us. I've been in since 2014. Still can't get everything right. Just when you think you have a plan moving forward, ready to swerve, be nimble, and survive. Fall. You know, man, I had a buddy of mine. This just recently happened. He is pretty safe with his crypto stuff, and he let one thing down. He has this app that kind of reads what the smart contract is going to do, and it pops up, right? So I use the Fire extension that says, hey, you're about to do this, and this is what you're actually signing, right? Because it reads the smart contract and kind of puts it into plain terms what's happening. And he had a different one. I can't remember what it was called, but he had turned it off because sometimes with VCs on these raises, it's kind of first come, first serve. And if there's like a really exciting project, you just want to get in. And if you're trying to sign a transaction and that thing's popping up, you lose valuable seconds and you might not get your funds in time. So he had turned that off, and then he had clicked on a link. This is similar to what happened actually to Dr. Rolex, right? Is he went to the Discord, the legitimate Discord. Well, there was a link on their Twitter to their Discord. So he clicked on that link. But what he didn't know is that I didn't know this either, but apparently Discord links can expire. And so a hacker had noticed that, and it changed the link to send you to a different Discord that looked exactly like the previous Discord. And in there was an announcement on a token swap, because that's what was happening. They were like, the project was like, hey, we're switching over, we're kind of revamping things. And so we're changing over this new token. So he did that, and he knows better, but he clicked on something and it was like, oh, like sign to verify that this is you. And I talked to him, I was like, yo, you never have to verify. Don't verify with stuff like that, you know? And he's like, I know, I thought it was weird. And I proved the transaction, and he had taken off that little pop-up that says, hey, this is what you're signing. And $8,000 worth of tokens were stolen. He saw him disappear immediately, and he was like, and he like moved the rest of his tokens off. And luckily nothing else was taken off. And then those tokens have since pumped, and they're worth about like 25 grand right now, right? Like, man, it sucks. Like, these things, crypto is vicious, and we're in deep waters here, and there are sharks all around. And so I just hope that everyone pushes towards educating yourself as much as possible. I have a video that I did early on of some common crypto scams. It's not all extensive by any means, but I would definitely watch it and just be aware. Be aware of the things on the internet and the links that you click on there. Like, if you're trying to get like a hard wallet, there are hackers who will advertise like and create like what looks like the same like Ledger wallet, the Treasure wallet, and you'll click on that and it's a hacker, and they're going to steal your funds. Like, there's so many things to be aware of. So geez, it makes me sick. And hey, Michael Campa, shout out to you. I loved your interview that you had with Danny Bull and Sanjay. That was awesome. Like, guys, if you don't follow Michael Campa, he is a VeVe and one of them, wicked smart and excellent insights into the VeVe market, and just an incredible person. There's so many epic people in the VeVe community. Celsius. That's the thing, right? You look at FTX, like there's fraud that can happen. Man, there's so many things. So hopefully I beat a dead horse with this a little bit. And guys, I'm going to wrap this up because I got to go pick up my kiddos. Yep. So there's that customer support there. I just want to get through the rest of the comments. Bitforex did offer only staking. I don't think that that's what they intended. Thankfully, I only lost 2 million. Again, like, regardless of the amount, I'm sorry, fam, that anything was lost there. And I hope that you can be pissed about it. Be pissed about it. Absolutely, you should. That's upsetting. Give yourself that time to be pissed about it. But then have an end date and like mentally fortify yourself and continue in this space, guys, because there's so much to gain here still. Maybe it would be interesting if his OMI was on Bitforex. That would be interesting. Hey, appreciate you, Evan. I appreciate you. It was fun to see you. I wish I was there on Around the Comiverse that time that you were there. I love it. I love it, fam. So, hey, guys, I would love for you guys to again, like, share, subscribe. Let me do my little gently caress, right? The all notification buttons. And again, just help me grow my channel. But thank you again for listening. And I would love it in the comments too, if you guys want to comment on anything of things that you guys would like me to discuss or cover, right? Again, my background is in economics and financial analysis. I do look at a lot of other projects. I'm in a lot of other projects, and I mainly use this channel for VeVe stuff. And I'll talk a little bit about some tokens. Let me do that real quick, actually. I'm going to do that just as for those who stayed around. I know that some people kind of jumped off because I said I was ending this, but some tokens that I'm excited about. I do like the Sky security token, SkyPass security token. I will say this. Right now, there's not a ton of use case for the token. Like, there is some use case. What I'm starting to look for is however the use case for the token can be used and applies to the real world use cases that are happening that this company is doing. And I believe that SkyPass Security has that capability and can implement those things. There's still some regulatory concerns with making sure that it doesn't ever enter into the realm of becoming a security because of that. But I do like what they're doing. That Commerce and Crypto held a space and I think Danny DeBoll did an interview with him, so check that out. But from the gaming side of things, if you have not looked at cornucopias, I'm telling you, these guys are building. I'm seeing a lot of gaming things come out, and they're using what appears to me to look like Unreal Engine 5's kind of like base gaming, and then people can put skins on top of it. But a lot of the mechanics are very, very similar between a lot of these games. And if they have a lot of lore and they've built that out, it can still be a fun game. I'm not going to take away from that. And there's some games that are like that I'm stoked on. But Cornucopia's game, I'm telling you, what they're building, if you haven't done it, go check out Cornucopia's on YouTube and watch some of the actual gameplay that they're doing. It is phenomenal. I am heavy into the Kopi token and the Kopi land because I think that this is a game that I'm going to be playing and I want to be playing for a long time. And I'm looking for those long-term games that people will want to be in. There will be guilds. There actually already are guilds within the cornucopias community. So I'm really big on that. Let's see. I'm looking at tokens that are launch pads. So one of them, and I kind of talked about this on Around the Comiiverse, but Chain GPT, and it's done a pump. So this is more of like I'm not going to call it a blue chip by any means, but it's already significantly up. But I still think it has some room to run, and I think that it is a safer token than some of these others. Like I think it's more established, and they already have like a launch pad, and there's an AI tie-in, so it's in that narrative. So I'm liking that for kind of like a safer play, not the multiples, right? There, VeVe token, I am big on. I know that Rain's talked about that. Danny DeBoll's talked about that. I've been in VeVe since the beginning. 8 million transactions per second. They have real world use cases for their blockchain, and they're already working with real companies. That is one of the reasons I'm really bullish on that, even for the long term there. What up, Bill Gardner? Can you look at VeVe? What's coming? See, I touched on that. I didn't even see that. What kind of projections could you see for Omi and Skypath? Look, I'll have to cover this. I'll cover this, guys, in another video, a little bit more in depth. I want to do it some justice there. So I just wanted to kind of at the end there, and I'll cover some more of the tokens that I'm doing. So maybe that'll be next week, next Thursday. Give me some time to kind of put some more information together on some of this stuff and show some of the clips of some of these things. So appreciate y'all. Thanks for everyone who stayed around. Have a blessed Thursday, and we'll see you on the next stream. Peace out.